Welcome everybody to Biohacker Summit London. Let's see if my slides actually show up. Sweet, there we go. Give yourselves a hand for being here. You might wonder why I'm dressed like a frat boy on stage today. It is, I actually broke my belt this morning getting ready to come here. Literally, I'm about to teach you the biohacks that will allow you to be strong enough to break your own belt, putting it on. No, but I did. If anybody has a size 30 to 32-ish waist and wants to loan me a belt later on, I can dress up like a big boy. But for now, I'm rocking the shorts and the grounding sandals. They actually are grounding sandals. You know, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Last time in Finland, I talked all about the marriage between like ancestral living and biohacking, and when biohacking has gone too far and when you should do jumping jacks instead of cold thermogenesis. Today, I wanted to allow plenty of time for you all to ask your burning questions. So feel free as we go to either raise your hand or save your question till the end. I love for these things to be interactive. And then also, I just want to tell you about the kind of stuff I've been up to lately, some of the biohacks that are really working for me lately, because frankly, I know that you all already know about the coffee enemas and the strange laser lights I stick up my nose, so I figured I'd talk about maybe some things that I haven't been talking about recently and just enlighten you on the things that have been working well for me. Does that sound good? I think we need some more energy in this room. Yeah. Why don't we start with one of the biohacks that I'll talk about it later on. It's something that's been shown via electroencephalogram to increase blood flow to the brain more than just about any form of yoga or breath work out there. But go ahead and stand up. Stand up! And make sure you have enough room to where you don't punch your neighbor in the face or the back. This is something I've been doing every morning for 20 to 30 minutes inside a sauna, actually. It's called Kundalini Breathwork, Kundalini Yoga. And I'm going to teach you a special form of it right now to get some energy going in this room. Take your hands and grasp your thumbs here. Pull your elbows to your side. And now we're going to get a little bit woo-woo. Actually, before we close our eyes, make sure that you've got enough room to reach out in front of you without punching the person who's in front of you. If you don't have enough room to get to full extension, go to like partial extension, like this, okay? Or like this. Now, I want you to breathe out as you punch out with your left hand. And in. And then breathe out with your right hand. And in. So it's going to look like this. Now, close your eyes, find your third eye chakra. Your third eye chakra is that area right in the center of your eyes. Settles. All right, cool. So let's jump into the things that have been working well for me lately. Every Friday night, somebody comes to my house now and does what is called jaw realignment. Anybody in here familiar with your vagus nerve? So your vagus nerve is one of the most important nerves that snakes through your body, and it is responsible for, among a variety of activities, including increased hormone production, relaxation, digestive function, etc., activation of your parasympathetic nervous system, and also regulation of your heart's rhythm, your heart's variability, via a release of acetylcholine. Now, one of the nerves that is connected to this vagus nerve is called the trigeminal nerve. And what you'll find is that a lot of people, due to tension, due to weightlifting, due to accidents, due to falling down and being clumsy, they basically have jaws that are not aligned properly. How many of you feel your jaw occasionally click? How many of you find yourself clenching your jaw occasionally? I certainly had this problem for a very long time. I'm training for my first cage fight right now in December, and so now I'm getting hit in the face a lot, and my jaw's getting shoved out of alignment all the time. I don't know why I'm setting this thing down. Might need it later. Anyways, though, so you can actually try this yourself. We can try it right now. Go ahead and, using your middle fingers, find that really sensitive spot that's kind of right up towards the upper part of your cheek. What's up, dude? Do you want my clicker? But it's mine. I'm going to need it.
I will fix it and get it back to you.
I think it's working now. I'm pretty sure. There you go. So hold some pressure. Now, this is going to hurt like a mother, but maintaining as much pressure as you can against that sensitive area on the jaw. Slowly open your jaw as wide as you can, and it's going to hurt. As wide as you can. Hold it. Hold that pressure. And then slowly close. You might get a little bit of a pop. Now, jaw realignment, the way that this works is you can work with a chiropractic doc, you can find an active release therapist, you can work with a sports medicine doc. I have a massage therapist who I literally sent a YouTube video on how to do it to, and that's not her doing a jaw. I don't have a jaw in my ass. That's her just doing everything else that she does to me in my living room, along with my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pillow. And basically, she'll do this for 5 minutes. She stands above me, finds every single trigger point on the jaw. I open and release. It has changed my sleep quality, the amount of time I spend in my deep sleep cycles. It's affected my parasympathetic nerve function, my relaxation. The next morning when I test my heart rate variability, it's through the roof, but it's just basically jaw realignment. Now, what I have is a resource page for all of you, and I'll put a link to it at the end of these slides. It's bengreenfieldfitness.com/London16. And if you go there, I will link to a YouTube video that you can watch yourself or that you can send to a therapist to start doing jaw realignment with you. But that's one of the things that I'm doing now that I freaking swear by. So once a week, I do full-on jaw realignment. Works really well. Has anybody ever done this before? You've done it? How do you feel afterwards? Amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's very similar to craniosacral work on the back of your head. That's also a really, really good way to target the vagus nerve. So that's number one. The next thing would be brain flush. That's actually me using 810 nanometer light called a Violite inside my nose. It's one of the best ways to target what's called cytochrome P450 in your brain. It's one of the best ways to feed light up into the brain is through the nose. So I use this device now. I have it here. I can show it to you guys later on if you'd like. It's just uncomfortable for me to talk with the light stuck up my nose, so I don't have it on right now. But the idea is that I'm very much into shutting down neural inflammation as much as possible. And in addition to doing this now, when I get out of bed, it's a 25-minute cycle that this thing runs for. So I walk around the house in my underwear with the light sticking out of my nose. I've got a few different nutrients that I use specifically to decrease inflammation in the brain and to assist with acetylcholine production. So one of those is lion's mane extract. I now use in my coffee every single morning lion's mane extract. Anybody use this at all? Really, really good for shutting down neural inflammation. So that's one thing that I now put in my cup of coffee. The next thing that I've been using is Bacopa. Bacopa. You don't need very much of it. I'll use like about 1/8 of a teaspoonful of Bacopa, but it's a really, really good herb to throw in the coffee in the morning. It mixes really well with lion's mane. This is a blend that's been working extremely well for me. The last one is black ant extract. How many of you were at the upgraded dinner last night? We had a whole cup full of black ants that we were actually eating. And these ants actually produce acetylcholine, another really, really good way to basically activate enhanced neural function in the morning. So I've got a black ant powder, I have Bacopa, and then I also have the lion's mane extract, and I mix all of that together. It's in a little black jar in my refrigerator, one of those do not eat type of jars. And I put about a teaspoon of that in my coffee in the morning, along with this light therapy. And that's one of the ways that I've been starting my day now. I swear by that as a morning cocktail. So if you guys want a little morning cocktail to try, I know there's all sorts of blends out there. There's turmeric, there's coconut oil, there's C8, all sorts of things. But this is a really, really good one I've found to be working quite well for me lately. Not quite as good as shooting coffee at my butt, which I talked about at the Finland biohacking event, but it works well. No laugh. Nobody thinks shooting coffee up your butt is funny. Okay, we'll move on. Hot cold therapy. So I now every single morning have been doing a specific protocol after I do that morning cocktail that I just talked about. So has anybody in here ever experimented with high dose niacin? I use like a non-flushing form of niacin that's not metabolized by the liver quite as heavily as regular niacin. It's this stuff called NSCA. It's made by Thorne. But basically, when you have niacin in your system, it induces your fat cells to release a huge number of A, triglycerides, and B, toxins, if you are actually under an infrared light when you have that niacin in your system. So what I do is after I've done that morning cocktail that I just talked about, I'll take high dose niacin with this NSCA. I use about 1,000 milligrams, and then I step into an infrared sauna for 30 minutes. Now that Kundalini yoga that I just showed you, I have a custom routine that I'll talk about in just a second. I do 20 to 30 minutes of that in, oddly enough, one of those clear light saunas that's downstairs. I have the great big one that you can do yoga in. And this is how I start my day every single day, is with this heat therapy combined with high dose niacin. And then what I do is for 5 to 10 minutes, I go outside and I do some of this Wim Hof style breathing, which you need to be careful with because you breathe off a lot of carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is your body's trigger to take a breath. So you need to be careful doing underwater swimming after you've breathed off a lot of CO2. But I'll do underwater swimming in this cold pool after I've done the heat therapy. Now you may be up or down there thinking, what the hell, man, I don't have an infrared sauna in my basement or a cold pool out in the forest. You can simulate this just like I did this morning. I do hot, cold in the shower, 20 seconds of cold, 10 seconds of hot, 10 times through for a 5-minute shower. I do that both morning and evening when I'm traveling. But when I'm at home, I do the infrared sauna. The other thing that I do now for jet lag, a couple people, they keep asking me whether or not I'm jet lagged since I got here. I've slept 9 to 12 hours a night since I got here. My secret, what I use is as soon as I land, how many of you here travel, by the way? I want to know if this is relevant to anybody. Okay, so basically what I do now is when I land, I do a Google map search for either Turkish bath, Japanese bath, or Russian bath. And any of those will have a cold plunge. They also have a steam room and or a sauna. So I have a 60-minute protocol that I use every single time I land in a city because I do not feel like going to the gym. I really don't want to throw down a workout after I hop off the plane. I just feel like shit. I want to go sit in a sauna or sit in a cold pool. So what I do is 15 minutes of sauna to 5 minutes of cold pool, to 15 minutes of steam room, to 5 minutes of cold pool, to 15 minutes of hot bath. Most of these have like a hot mineral bath, to 5 minutes of cold pool. And that's my 60-minute routine now that I use anytime that I travel across multiple time zones. It works like a charm. You can do like the hot cold contrast shower, but for me to pay like 15, 20, 30 bucks to get a day pass to one of these facilities and do something like that, well worth the payoff when it comes to shutting jet lag down. So hot cold contrast, and specifically some of those forms that I just told you about, they work really well. And then occasionally I'll just put on my underwater MP3 player and literally take like a 15 or 20 minute cold shower and just wait for the hotel to try to knock down my door and tell me to quit wasting water. That's it. Okay, so 365 IF. I now, 365 days a year, do intermittent fasting. I do a compressed feeding window of 8 to 12 hours. How many of you in here have experimented with this? Okay. Now, one of the things that I get asked about a lot when it comes to intermittent fasting, so there's a few things that I get asked. First of all, is it different for women versus men? And the answer is actually yes. Women have a specific peptide. Men have it, but women have it in greater quantities. It's called kisspeptin. And kisspeptin responds to feeding signals in the morning and in the evening. What it does in response to a properly timed feeding signal is it causes the release of gonadotropin-releasing hormone. That causes you to churn out luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. When that occurs, it's actually a sign to your body to upregulate metabolism, to stay in a very fertile state, to burn a lot of calories, and to do a lot of the things that you would expect in a body that's staying fertile and healthy, because in many cases fertility is synonymous with health, especially in women. Now, what intermittent fasting can do is it can actually decrease your sensitivity to that kisspeptin. So that's one of the reasons that you'll find some women don't respond quite as well to like strict intermittent fasting type of protocols. In many cases, you can keep some of these effects at bay by doing something like medium chain triglycerides or brain octane, or kind of like the fat in the morning type of coffee approach, because you get a lot of calories, but at the same time you don't get that big glucose and insulin response that you would if you were eating like eggs and bacon or a fruit smoothie or something like that. So for women, sometimes doing something like the fatty coffee in the morning, but doing an overnight fast works really well. For guys, I've found that no calories at all in the morning until that 12 to 16 hour fast is over works extremely well for staying lean, especially. Now, one of the things that I always do inside that window is a little bit of easy aerobic cardio. For me now, it's that hot-cold contrast that I talked about, along with some of this Kundalini style yoga. But basically the idea is that I do this Christmas, Thanksgiving, you name it, 365 days a year, I do an intermittent fast. And it's one of the things that I swear by for staying lean, because I have to haul my ass up hills in obstacle races and in triathlons. And so for me, figuring out ways to keep the body fat percentage low is key. And this is one of the things that works extremely well. Yeah?
Sorry, last question. But my guess is a lot of people get supplements.
Mm-hmm.
If you're supplementing, a lot of things you should take on weight gain or weight gain.
Yeah, a lot of things that are absorbed with food.
Exactly. So how do you fit that in?
Take it with lunch. Right. So if you're going to wait until 10 or 11 or noon to take your multivitamin or take your fish oil or vitamin D or vitamin K or anything else that's soluble with the meal, you wait. The other thing that can work well if you really are trying to get swole, like 70 is big, and you want to get some of the benefits of intermittent fasting, is essential amino acids. So you can take those in a fasted state. They're not going to bump up insulin or glucose, but they'll keep you anabolic to a certain extent. So you can use like 10 to 20 grams of essential amino acids in a fasted state, even if you're a guy, and that would be a better solution than something like a fatty coffee, which just has a lot of calories in it. So, good question. All right, let's go on to what I think is number 5, this Kundalini Yoga. This is Summer. I actually hired her. She works with people all over the world, and she does these custom yoga routines, specifically this Kundalini Yoga that you just learned about. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to activate certain chakras, like my liver, my brain, my heart, some of the areas that I really wanted to have enhanced for digestion, for cognitive performance, and for cardiovascular performance. And like I mentioned, Kundalini Yoga, what you just did, kind of a little tiny mini version of that, where you're punching the person in front of you in the back of the kidneys, that is a very, very good way to increase blood flow to the brain. I'm going to put some links to some really interesting EEG research on that specific form of breathwork and yoga in the slides that I'm going to make available to you on my website here. But basically, Kundalini Yoga, you learn this move. Another move is this one, where you're basically slapping different parts of your body as you twist. Another one is you'll reach up like this and basically push energy behind you and come up, and push energy behind you and come up. And after each different form of movement that you do for 60 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you do that hold where you squeeze everything. You squeeze your crotch, you squeeze your abs, you squeeze your chest, you drop your jaw and relax your head, and then you eventually breathe out and let it out. And I'll do this and get completely covered in sweat, have an amazing workout, move a lot of breath through my body. It works fantastically if you have like a little hotel room to work out in, if you want to work out in a sauna. But the idea is that Kundalini Yoga is a combination of movement and breath work. And again, remember what we're talking about are the little biohacks that I've found to work very, very well recently. And this is one of the things that I'm swearing by now. Now, like I said, I combine it with that sauna, but you can make this part of that morning routine, and it counts as the movement that you do when you're in that intermittent fasted state. You can finish this up with something like that hot-cold contrast shower. Amazing way to start your day. It's all, I mean, you can do it in an airport, lock yourself in the handicap bathroom at the airport, however you want to do it. But in summer, we'll do custom routines. I'll put a link at the end where she'll actually put together a custom routine for you. Okay, the next one is blood glucose. And like you've probably heard me talk about on a podcast, or as you're probably already aware of, I'm not going to insult your intelligence. Small amounts of movement throughout the day are going to keep your blood glucose normalized. Not snacking a lot, that's also going to keep your blood glucose normalized. I mean, most of us kind of know these things. And of course, that's important because chronically elevated blood sugar or fluctuations in blood sugar cause neural inflammation and vascular inflammation and adherence of glucose to cholesterol particles and atherosclerosis and all sorts of other issues. So we know that we want to control blood glucose. And you know, I move all the time. This is just a picture of my office where I've got a treadmill. I also have now a heavy bag next to my desk where after I finish a Skype or a consult or I talk to somebody who's really particularly annoying, I just beat the bag to death for like 2 or 3 minutes and then get back to work. So I'm doing these little movements throughout the day to keep blood glucose low. But there are 3 specific nutrients / supplements that I use to keep blood glucose normalized and keep myself sensitive to insulin throughout the day. These are just things I do every day. Back in my hotel room right now is a big bottle of apple cider vinegar. I'll buy it when I get into a town. It's cheap, it's easy to find. Keep it at home too. Apple cider vinegar has been shown to lower your postprandial blood glucose when you do the equivalent of about 2 tablespoons prior to a meal. Okay, so I'll take whichever meal I'm starting off the day with because it's like a good morning tonic, and I'll do a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. The next thing that works really well is cinnamon. For cinnamon, you want to use a brand of cinnamon called Ceylon cinnamon, Ceylon. That's the one that they've actually shown to decrease blood glucose. And the equivalent you need is about 2 teaspoons. It's a lot of cinnamon. So like if I have a cup of coffee, I put a couple teaspoons of cinnamon in it, and you're literally like chewing cinnamon out of the bottom of the coffee. And Starbucks loves it because I take the lid off of their coffee and dump it in there. But organic Ceylon cinnamon is best. You can get it off Amazon. You can find it at a lot of health food stores. And again, this is something you would ideally time before you eat a meal that's rich in protein or rich in carbohydrates. Okay, so that's number 2. I do apple cider vinegar, the equivalent of about 2 tablespoons. I do cinnamon, the equivalent of a couple teaspoons. Then the last one is bitter melon extract. And they've actually done some studies comparing bitter melon extract with metformin. And when consumed prior to a meal, bitter melon extract is just as good at lowering your postprandial blood glucose levels. Now, if you want to test this, there's a really cool monitor called a Dexcom G5. It's a 24-hour continuous blood glucose monitor that you need a physician's prescription for, but it emits very, very low levels of EMF compared to other 24-hour blood glucose monitors. You can also use just like a basic AccuCheck blood glucose monitor if you want to test some of this yourself. But those are 3 things that I use now to control blood glucose: cinnamon, apple cider vinegar, and bitter melon extract. And that's very important to me because I've done genetic testing with 23andMe. I know that I have a higher than normal risk for type 2 diabetes. I compete in endurance sports where my ability to use ketones and be a fat burning machine is really important. So those are some of the things that I use now to control blood glucose. And now Starbucks is going to hate us all because they're going to run out of cinnamon really fast. Okay. That's a cool picture.
Ben?
Yes. Yes.
Do you take apple cider vinegar in a water solution or straight?
I just drink it straight, baby. A little pucker factor. It's like the police officer in Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, it's the other cool thing is that taste. It kind of activates the urge to take your morning defecation. So it helps out with that a little bit too if you time it in the morning. The next thing is variety. Variety. Back in my hotel room again. All of you want to go to my hotel room now because you're learning about all sorts of cool things I have back there. Intranasal light, apple cider vinegars, my ukulele. I travel everywhere with my ukulele now. Not only is music one of those other things that can really help out with vagal nerve tone. It's really interesting. Frequencies, especially music and singing and chanting and gargling and humming. These all help with that vagus nerve that I talked about earlier. But music is one of those things that does a really, really good job at enhancing neurogenesis and causing a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor and the growth of new neurons, specifically learning a musical instrument or learning how to play a new song on a musical instrument that you've already learned. So I literally have there's a bag company called Fusion, and they make bags for any type of musical instrument that you could imagine. You could take your jazz flute, you could take your guitar, you could take your ukulele, and these bags fuse to a backpack or any other piece of luggage that you want to fuse them to, so you can take musical instruments anywhere. The cool thing is that airlines seem to really, really like musicians. When I carried my bike all over the planet doing triathlons, I would get treated like an asshole. When I take my spear fishing gun down to Florida, they don't like that either. But for some reason, I can carry this big fat ukulele on the plane, and I walk on, and the stewardess, she offers to check it into the first class. Anyways, though, so variety is key. There's a really good book by Dr. Daniel Amen who talks about SPECT scans for the brain and some of the really interesting things that they've found in terms of variety and in terms of different activities targeting different areas of the brain. There's some very, very interesting things in that book by Dr. Amen, and he talks about how variety is key, how novelty is key, how challenge is key. So you have to have variety, novelty, and challenge. But there are some activities in there that I thought were really interesting. For example, what would you guess to be the #1 sport on the face of the planet that causes the greatest amount of blood flow to the brain? Who are the smartest athletes on the face of the planet? Anybody know? I would have guessed chess. Chess was a good guess. What's that? Musicians? That's not a sport. Unless maybe it is a sport for you, man. Running around, banging people over the head with your ukulele. Yeah. It's actually table tennis, ping pong. Really, really interesting. And it's there. I've found that rich people buy ping pong tables and never use them, so they dump them for really good prices on websites like Craigslist and eBay. Get yourself a ping pong table. I actually do this in the morning now. I play ping pong against the wall on the ping pong table because I'm lonely and I don't have any friends to actually play ping pong with. Now, I'll hit with my kids sometimes, and we have a party at our house. We play ping pong in the basement, but ping pong, of all things, table tennis is one of those activities that causes huge amounts of blood flow to the brain. But one of the rules that I live life by is I never go for a month without delving into something that makes my brain uncomfortable. Another example is every Sunday night at our house, the only language you can speak is Spanish. And I suck at Spanish right now, so this is really, really hard for me. But it really gets my brain humming every Sunday night. It's a little bit scary, it's a little bit uncomfortable. But ask yourself as you're going through life, what is it this week that I've really challenged myself with, or have I just kind of stayed on cruise control all week? Or get yourself a ukulele and a padded bag. So variety is key again. And I don't know what that is next to me in that picture, but it looks like someone playing a sea cucumber, perhaps. It's tough to say. That was actually in Hawaii, so it could have been. Okay. Talked about variety a little bit already. This is actually that's a screenshot from Dr. Amen's book that I was just talking about, showing the different sections of the brain and how different sections are stimulated by different activities. So you have your language games that target your prefrontal cortex, learning new instruments is your temporal lobes, juggling, map reading, parietal lobes, cerebellum, table tennis is another good one. So you can even learn new dance steps. So there you go, variety. Next up is aromatherapy. Right now, I actually grabbed some downstairs. Right now I have peppermint and sweet orange on my upper lip, okay? So that's one thing that I'll use to enhance cognitive performance, and it's been shown to increase production of alpha brainwaves. So peppermint is one. Cinnamon is another that acts very, very similarly in terms of cognitive performance. And then the final one is vanilla, which is actually also an aphrodisiac. So it's got a little bonus. What I do is I actually will take vanilla essential oil. I mix that with sandalwood essential oil. So I'm both smart and completely irresistible to the ladies. And I'll put that like on the back of my neck and my arms. But essential oils for activation of the brain, that's something I've been doing quite a bit of. I use cinnamon, peppermint, and then vanilla mixed with sandalwood. And then for relaxation, this is my bedside. There's a whole bunch of different things there, but one of the things that you see in that picture is just a basic air diffuser. So what I do is I've got 3 different essential oils that I use because I find that for some reason my brain starts to become accustomed to the relaxing effects of one oil and it begins to not work quite as well. So I cycle between 3 different oils for sleep that I'll use in this cold air diffuser, which I do travel with, by the way. Got another toy I have back in my hotel room. Lavender, rose, and bergamot oil. That's Bergamot. Those 3 essential oils for relaxation, for sleep, for naps work very, very well. So there's really a total of 6 that I use quite frequently. The peppermint, the cinnamon, and the vanilla for alertness, and then the rose, the lavender, and the bergamot for relaxation. So if you haven't played around with essential oils at all, there's even an essential oil table downstairs, and you can kind of smell some of them. But they're really, really cool. There's a bunch of others that I use. I'm doing an experiment right now with blue spruce oil for enhancing testosterone right now. But essential oils are really cool. If you haven't delved into them, ton of fun to play with. Let's talk about some other things that you see there in that picture, though. That one by my bedside right there, that's a low-intensity pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. So who here has played around with PEMF much at all? Like an earth pulse or a beamer or any of these other devices that deliver this pulsed electromagnetic frequency. And they've shown to be very, very beneficial for everything from enhancing bone healing to enhancing soft tissue healing to giving you like a grounding or an earthing effect. You guys familiar with like grounding and earthing mats and stuff like that? You're all biohackers, so probably heard a little bit about this stuff. But low intensity PEMF, it is one of those things that a lot of people who can't handle these more powerful forms of PEMF, like a beamer or an earth pulse or some of these other devices out there, do very, very well with. And I have clients now who have completely beaten insomnia just by using this single device. What it is it is a PEMF device that emits a very, very low level signal, about 1,000 times less powerful than most of the other devices that are out there. And you place it either over your brachial plexus or over that third eye chakra that we were talking about earlier. And you can actually use a sleep mask, like a wraparound sleep mask, to get it over that area of the forehead, or you can use a double-sided adhesive tape to put it right over the brachial plexus, where the stimulation that it creates feeds up to your brain through the nerves that travel between your brain and the brachial plexus, which is kind of like that tender spot right between your collarbone and your shoulder. So I'll put this on, and it runs for about 22 minutes, and then it turns off. So you put it on right before you fall asleep at night, and then if you wake up during the night, you press the little button on it, and it causes you to fall asleep again. And it's very, very strange. You press the button, and it's way down on your shoulder, but you can feel it inside your head. You almost feel these delta brainwaves get created inside your head as you use it. And I'll combine this with things like binaural beats and the lavender, etc., and I sleep like a baby. I'll talk in a second about the type of things I'm using for sleep self-quantification. But I've experimented with all sorts of different PEMF devices, and this one works really well. It's called a Somni Resonance SR1 Delta Sleeper. It's about $500, and in my opinion, I'll pay 10 to 15 bucks, sometimes 20 bucks for a really, really solid night of sleep. So for me, it's worth the investment, and that's a device I'm now swearing by. I also like it because it's super portable, like the big magnets and stuff that you travel with. TSA does not like those very much, but this little tiny magnet, I've never had a problem with it at all. So, does anybody in here use that, by the way? SR1? What do you think? Yeah, works. All right, cool. He says it works, so it must. I don't know what I just did. Did I mess things up? I may have. I might need some slide help while I respond to this next question.
Just
If
hold
somebody
on.
wants to put it back up there. Go ahead. Who had a question? Yeah. I don't remember the exact frequency. It's super weak though. It's really weak. Yeah, I don't remember. I've got it. I've got the actual hertz frequency on my website in an article that I wrote about it. But off the top of my head, I don't recall the hertz frequency. But it's really low. So, okay. Next up is self-quantification. So has anybody messed around with the Aura ring yet? I'm using this now for sleep, and it's the only form of self-quantification that I now use because it does not emit a Bluetooth signal. Okay, it has an internal computer on it, so it's just like having your phone in airplane mode. It collects data. When you're ready to sync it up to your device, you can then turn it on, activate the Bluetooth on your device, sync up the data, and then turn it back off. So you're not getting exposed to electrical pollution all day long. And there are some issues. There's one study that shows how Bluetooth kind of affects the blood-brain barrier in rats. I think it can affect cell membrane function. So I'm not a fan of the Fitbit or the Jawbone or any of these other devices that constantly emit a signal. But basically, you can learn all sorts of cool things: heart rate variability and temperature and respiration and heart rate. This is just an example of a typical sleep cycle. But it's really, really interesting. Like, for example, this is kind of a crappy night of sleep because you can see I only spent 6% of the night in deep sleep, and normally you'd want to be at about 18 to 22% of the night in deep sleep. But I'll play all sorts of little games with this. Like, for example, I brought the temperature of my home from 67 degrees down to 65. No, it was lower than that. It was a 4-degree difference. So it was 63 degrees that I brought it down to. And when I brought the temperature down, my heart rate during the night dropped from 39 down to 36. It occurred 2 hours earlier than it normally occurs, which is a sign of better recovery when your lowest resting heart rate occurs earlier in the evening. And my deep sleep jumped from 11% the night before up to 22% that night. And the only thing that I changed was the temperature of the room. And I've never really been a huge fan of sleep quantification because I've never wanted to have like a device attached to my body while I'm sleeping. I've just always kind of eschewed that idea of the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi and everything else in the bedroom. But this ring is what I use now for self-quantification. I actually found it at the last biohacking conference in Finland. It's called an OURA. I don't think they're actually here, and I do know they're online. It's auraring.com is where you can get them. But that's what I use now for self-quantification. That's one of the other latest biohacks that I'm swearing by. Okay, so a few things. I've got resources for you guys over at, here's the cool animation. There we go. Over at bengreenfieldfitness.com/London16, along with the narcissistic shirtless photo of myself with my pants pulled up just high enough. I love it when my people put that kind of thing on a slide. Anyways, though, bengreenfieldfitness.com/London16 is where you can access some of the studies, some of the resources, some of those other things that I talked about. And I know I just flew through all that stuff because I wanted to allow some time to just answer your guys' burning questions. I know Jack Cruz up there is probably wondering why this room is lined on both sides with bright blue light, and the stairs as well. Possibly concerned about that. I think they did that just for you, Jack. But what kind of questions do you guys have, and how much time do we have for questions, by the way? Anybody know? Any of the people in charge?
5 minutes.
We got 5
we
minutes
got
for
7
questions.
minutes.
All right, fire away. What kind of questions do you guys have? Nothing.
We got
Yes,
a
sir.
microphone going down somewhere.
It's on this side.
Just wait for the microphone.
How do I feel when I what? When I don't do any of what I just talked about, I can get by just fine. I unplug. Like I camp, I hunt, I'll be up in BC in a couple months in a tent in the cold with absolutely nothing except a bow, right? And I feel okay, but for me to actually live a fully bold, daring, courageous life where I'm traveling around the globe, on and off planes, engaged in modern living, looking at my phone, typing on my computer, bathed in light, and having to put up with all the electrical pollution and the brake dust and everything else that I have to deal with when I'm living in a modern society that I cannot escape from, I use this stuff to actually feel much, much better. If I'm out in the middle of the wilderness, I'm just fine. As soon as I'm camping or hunting, I don't use any of this stuff because I can't. I don't have any electricity. I don't have the ability to use a lot of this. You know, sometimes I'll use like the essential oils and stuff like that. But ultimately, in the face of modern living, it's a night and day difference in terms of everything from sleep quality to heart rate variability to brain fog in the afternoon to everything else that you can either self-quantify or self-qualify.
Find it wears off like training, detraining,
Do I find that after a week of being in the woods, I want to go back and do like biohacking and stuff like that? No, because I'm in the woods, right? Usually when I'm in the woods, what I'm thinking at the end of the day is I just want to go back and see my family and get whatever big animal that I've gotten, way the heck out of there so I can go eat it. But ultimately, no, I'm not thinking about biohacking if I'm off hunting, just because I don't need to, right? Because a lot of what we talked about is just mitigating the damage of modern living. So, yes. Oh, these are Earth Runner sandals. They have carbon plugs in them and carbon going up and down the laces to enhance the grounding or the earthing effect. If you happen to be standing on earth, they don't work so well if you're way high up in a building or something like that. But if you're standing on dirt or grass and you're somewhere where you can't go barefoot or you get arrested, they work really well. So, other questions? Yes.
You didn't really touch much on exercise apart from the yoga. You can't just say, here's my 3 top tips for exercise.
My 3 top tips for exercise. Number 1 is that I rarely do anything that is sympathetic nervous system fight or fight based in the morning. I have found that it is too stressful. I've found that the body really isn't primed in terms of body temperature, post-workout protein synthesis, testosterone, etc. when I'm doing a hard workout early in the morning. So the morning is always like the Kundalini yoga, the breath work, the hot-cold contrast, stuff like that. Then in the afternoon, I personally usually work out outside. Rocks, sandbags, logs, ropes, just basically I get out in nature. Yesterday it was out in St. James Park, just running loops around St. James Park and stopping for burpees and little, pull-ups on the bars along the park there and mountain climbers. And so that's the style of workout that I do. So that's number 1 is do your easy stuff in the morning, your hard stuff at night. Another one in terms of exercise would be I do a lot of functional exercise, and if I have like a resistance to working out, like it's the afternoon and I'm traveling and I just I'm not quite sure what I want to do and it's raining outside and I got to go down to the hotel gym or whatever, I'll typically do a circuit where I choose 1 strength exercise, 1 cardio exercise, and 1 more relaxing type of core exercise. So I'll do 60 seconds on the bike, then a set of deadlifts, then a core motion, and then I'll do 60 seconds on the treadmill, then a squat, then a core motion, and then I'll do 60 seconds on the rowing machine, then an overhead press, then a core motion, and I'll just do circuits of that for as much time as I have available. Last thing is that constant variety is key. If you're trying to build muscle and just get super duper swole, you have to hit the muscle over and over again from the same angle with the same exercises. So if you want to be a bodybuilder, you do the same exercises for your chest week after week, month after month, for your quads, for your legs, etc. But if you just want to keep your metabolism elevated and stay functional and healthy, always throw a curveball at your body. The best workout is whichever workout that you're not currently doing. So I'll rarely actually repeat a proper workout, like a Kundalini yoga type of session. That's the same, but I don't really consider that a workout as much as like a morning movement protocol. But for an actual workout, always change it up. So those are the few little things I do for exercise. Good question. Let's go with a couple until they kick me off stage. Yes. Do I take supplements? I do. I use creatine for the neurotropic effect just as much as for the muscle and the power sustaining effect. I use fish oil. I use a good multivitamin, and that's usually in the morning. And then in the evening, I use cannabidiol, and I use a small microdose of melatonin combined with something called pH-GABA, which is just an inhibitory neurotransmitter that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So those 5 are typically something that I'll take every day: fish oil, creatine, a multi, Then in the evening, CBD and a little sleep cocktail. So, yes. Whoa. All right, let's go. One more.
Proper nutrition can be enough instead of getting
Proper nutrition, if you live on a pristine Himalayan mountaintop and you eat all organic food, chock full of minerals and everything else that you need, and then you also make a decision that you don't want to do what I do, traveling around the globe, competing in some of the most masochistic events on the face of the planet, then you could get away without a multivitamin. But because of the combination of food not really being what it used to be, and also me doing unnatural things with my body, I have to take a multivitamin to get everything that I would actually need without eating copious amounts of food, because I have to keep my body fat low, right? So I could get everything I need if I was eating like 5,000 or 6,000 calories a day, but that doesn't allow me to stay as lean as I need to stay for the sport I'm competing in. So that's why I do a multivitamin. But you're right, in many cases you don't need one. So, yeah.